Welcome back to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm Rob O'Day and we're on location in Kelowna with DJ Thistle, one of Kelowna's top vinyl DJs. It's good to have you.
Hello, thanks for having me, yes.
No worries. Why don't we dive in right away with who you are, where you're from, and how you got into music.
Sure. My name is Matt, DJ Thistle. I'm from Kelowna, kind of lived other places in BC when I was younger, live on the west side now, but Okanagan is my home base. And I got into DJing when I was like 18, so 45 now, can do the math from there. Kind of was around for the original rave explosion, and that's where I started playing music, even though I was also into hip hop and stuff like that. It's just kind of grown from there into all different facets, owning a record store, producing. I taught at Cato when like Excision and Datsik and Downlink and people like that all went through. So it's just over many years of staying in the industry, I've got to just see and do so much. It's one of those things where like, just like staying in it gets you so much experience, right? It's been awesome.
When you watch a DJ who like 8-track or, DJs who are high level scratching, it's mind blowing. And you've competed doing so.
Yeah.
How did you, this is kind of where I really want to dive into, because it's an art form that I've never got to sit and talk with someone.
Sure,
just watching YouTube videos.
Would be the correct term,
and turntablism is, to me, is mind-blowing. Like when Bliss and Esso came through at Flashbacks, 12 years ago or something like that, watching ISM while I was on stage, it kind of introduced me to it. You always see DJs. So how did you get into scratching?
Let me dive into the memory bank on that one. How did I get into scratching specifically? So I got into DJing not to DJ. So fun fact, I guess, to start it off with, my first rave was playing. I wasn't part of the like going out and party culture kind of thing before that. I grew up with more hard rock and metal because of my dad, right? But there was also Bob Marley records and things like that were around when I was a kid. So there was a little bit of variety, but just that whole rock element was what was popular in my age growing up, late 80s, early 90s. And then exposure to hip hop and rap music started super young, like 91, 92, so I'm like 11 or 12. And that just gave me something in the background that was different than all my friends that were into rock music and then grunge, right? Because that whole era then happened next. But I was the only one kind of in the background. I mean, maybe they listened to Beastie Boys, right? But I actually listened to hip hop too. And then I think I must have been like 13, and it was like super late night on Much Music, and The Prodigy came on. And I was like, what is this music? And it was that explosion of rave sound and also not just like house music, but like breakbeats, and what ended up turning into jungle and drum and bass, which is where I gravitated towards. And a lot of people that probably you might even know too from like the metal type scene would come to drum and bass shows because it was the most, I don't know, like aggressive, but also like house music. As much as there's like soul and flow and groove to it, drum and bass can have like lots of like harmony and things going on too. There's like the Brazilian side of it, the super heavy side of it, the jungle side of it. So just like the diversity brought me in too. So I've got the metal thing going on. I've got the liking a bit of hip hop, this, oh my God, what is breakbeats and rave stuff going on? So I graduate, I'm 17, almost 18. I start university. I like make my first mixtape off of just whatever I even had at the time. And then I bought like belt drive turntables, right? And just garbage like that. And I think it was when I was first buying records, I came across the turntablism scratch records, whether it be the Battle Tools or DJs that were just scratching a vocal, scratching a kick and a drum, and then layering it all in a sampler back then, and then making music that was all sample based, right? So that was super cool to me. Probably like Kid Koala probably would have been the first real and DJ Shadow. And then I saw the battle side, which was A-Track and DJ Craze. And then Craze to this day is still like the guy. And so when I was starting to scratch from seeing that artistic Kid Koala style, and then I saw the battle style, that just made me want to round it all out. And I had this house where, you know, it's like 4 or 5 roommates, and I had like the downstairs room that had this big walk-in closet. So I bought turntables. I'm like 19, and I just locked myself in the closet, actually, for like 2 years pretty much, and just practice and practice and practice, and worked and practice and worked and practice and worked and practice. That's all I did was work and practice. And then it just went from there, right? I just thought it was awesome. It was just another part of the musical journey. And because I was young and decided to spend my money on music and turntables and stuff and not snowboarding and whatever, like it was a conscious choice of, right, like you've got X amount of dollars on a crappy minimum wage job. What am I going to do with my spare time? And I wanted to do the music stuff. And then it was like a year later, sort of like my scholarship type money was hitting its ends for university, and university I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't like just all the extra stuff I had to do. I was great at the classes that I wanted to be there and major in. All the other stuff seemed like fluff, and I was like, music's going good. So I dropped out of school, I pivoted, and then I worked 3 jobs and opened up a record store. So I just busted my rear end for like a year, worked like 65, 70 hours a week, and opened up this tiny little store downtown Kelowna. And it was upstairs in an office building. It wasn't even like, you know, just walk into the cool record store, right? It was like, you have to be quiet. There's only headphones. But because it was a tiny little like 200 square foot space, I was able to offer product cheaper than everywhere else. So the store did well. We stayed open. A couple other shops closed down. We moved into like what was then the place that had always been a record store. So we kind of took it over, front side. And then the internet became very obvious that it was going to ruin music. I think HMV had closed down nationally. There was Sam the Record Man. Sam the Record Man had closed down nationally. And there was just some HMVs left and some A&B sounds. I saw the writing on the wall and thought, you know what? I don't need to lose money. The store's still doing well. I'm just going to kind of pull out. And then that was that part of the venture. But so much was learned and gained on the turntablism, hip hop, and then all the knowledge of the culture.
What are the benefits of the growth in the industry, and which aspects have gone negative, if that makes sense?
Sure. I mean, well, I guess it would be like anything in life. When something becomes a movement or something new and innovative happens, it can be just shunned because it's new, right? So like electric cars seem like a great idea, but a lot of people just don't want to buy one for whatever reason. Like, I don't know why. They just don't want to, right?
Yeah.
We don't even have to have a discussion about possible positive or negative environmental impacts. It's just like, there's all these other benefits that come with it, but still it's just bad, right? So there's just like, there's always pushback against new things, right? So in the beginning, you know, hip hop was bad. And then rave culture was bad. And of course it was. We were going out and using venues that we weren't supposed to use, or empty buildings, or here, you know, once it was like take all the gear out and a rave happened, not for very long, but in one of the tunnels on the Coquihalla, right?
Okay.
So it was just, let's just find a spot and do something and see how it goes, and then just having fun, right? But it was just, it's almost uncomparable, because how it started then was you have a lot of, like, I think probably the best example for rave music would be almost comparing early rave music in London to, let's say, early punk in London, where it is a cultural thing, it is a demographic thing, it's a voice against the man in the system. And then as it all became more popular, maybe not even more popular, as it all became more socially acceptable and as it all became more legal to do, then it also sold out. So punk rock, when I was a kid, I could still see the 70s roots of like anti-establishment. But then I watched, you know, the Lollapalooza type eras started, and then it became super corporate. And then all of a sudden it started, you know, the Sugar Ray pop punk era. I'm just like, what's going on, right? And dance music has really done the same thing, where it was counterculture, it was against everything, it was illegal in buildings, and then it was, okay, we want to make sure people are safe, and we don't want to get, you know, hooped if something happens.
Exactly.
So we found out ways to get insurance and blah, blah, blah. That was like the golden pocket, like late 90s, early 2000s, because found a way to do it legally, but it wasn't epically popular yet, right? And then after it becomes popular, then everyone has these expectations tied to it, and people want to make money off it. And as soon as people want to make money off it, it has to hit all the marks to be more socially acceptable. It almost becomes less inclusive, because early rave culture was a lot of the most, you know, very artistic, very neurodiverse, homeless, disadvantaged, like people looking for places to go and do things because they don't want to be in the rest of society, whether it's because home life is bad or because they just don't fit in with society, right? So going to like these giant, I don't even want to say all the music festivals, but some of the giant music festivals, most of the giant music, there are smaller ones and mid-sized ones that I still think encompass some of those values, but most of these big, huge ones are just corporate sponsored, wearing all the clothes everybody else wears, using all the products everyone else uses, a big garbage mess left over. Like there's no mental construct that is different. It's just mainstream. Whereas that mental construct of the person coming into the party in 2001 was completely different.
Yes.
So that's where I think the downfall has happened, in that it's taken like the soul out of it and just made it like part of the machine.
I think what you did is, where other people were looking at it as this is a great way to party and become popular, is you took it and went, I want to create events and a comfort place.
A lot of the time for me and my success, I've been too early. I think I would be a far more successful person if at times I wasn't pushing the envelope so hard. And, you know, that's just what comes with making things happen, though. You have to. I'm still happy with the things I've been able to do. Very few people have even got to, you know, who gets to make a living off of music for like 25 years, right?
Honestly.
And still have a family and all that kind of stuff. And,
Exactly.
so not going to complain about it at all. I'm just saying that there's totally different levels of success, and you have to work hard, but your best sometimes isn't good enough.
Yep.
And it's okay for that to happen. Maybe you need to pivot. Maybe certain elements of the industry are for you or aren't for you. I think that, like, out of all the things in life, even, like, actually DJing, actually in front of a crowd, hands-on turntables, being able to scratch and do all that stuff, I don't know, I think that's maybe why I'm on Earth, right? You know, like, be a good person, family, yada, yada, but, like, my skill or my whatever, that's actually it. I love producing music and whatnot, but I've had tinnitus as a kid, so I can make music that is good and listenable, that the crowd wants to hear when they're just having fun and they're whatever. But when I send it to friends, it's like, this doesn't sound right, that doesn't sound, like the mix, my mix is crap because my ears aren't right, you know? So I know that the music vibe that I can bring is good, but like my mix down and my production side, even though I've done production stuff, still suffers. So I know I didn't try to stick with it no matter what. I just went, you know what? As much as I'm good at it, I'm gonna use that to maybe do more like remixes, edits, mashups. I'll still do some of my own stuff so that I can have original productions, so that like marketing type people, you know, you're not just playing other people's music. But I just used it for more remixing because I know my limit, that my best at production isn't as good as it needs to be to compete with somebody like Tyler or whatever, right? But like DJing, bring it. I don't care who you are. Like I'll play, I've lost gigs with promoters because when I open, I'm just gonna give it my all. And they don't want people to do that often, right? Because when I did shows, I didn't care what time you were booked for, I want you to bring your A game to my party so that everybody that has been there knows, wow, it doesn't matter what time I show up, it's going to be good, right? Whereas if only your headliner is going to slam, that's not, for me as a promoter, it never worked out. So when I as a DJ would go, I'm bringing my A game all the time, Other pivots can be, stage managing, which I like doing. I did Shambhala a bit. I currently am a stage manager at Bass Coast, and I did stage managing for what was the Indigenous Resilience Festival at the Mary Irwin Theater, Rotary.
Cool.
So that was like 12 hours, 48 performers, switchovers every 20 minutes, I loved it though. And being a stage manager doesn't mean you have to know everything about sound, everything about lights. It means you should know a little bit about everything so you can help troubleshoot. But your job is just to help people do their job properly and keep everyone on time. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the best at anything. You just have to be a good person a good people person, be inclusive, be, kind and respectful to people, like all those things, and then you can have longevity in the industry. Really crappy people seem to make great artists because they're cutthroat and they can do that business corporate side and they can stay in it. But if that lameness ever kind of gets out into the public, especially nowadays in today's world, then you're done. Whereas good people can have a long road, not just being an artist. You can pivot to other areas. Artist management, maybe you just have been in it a while and your bros are doing better than you are, but they trust you. So maybe you should do their bookings and help them succeed more. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to just be, I want to be a rapper, I want to be a DJ, I want to be the best soloist or guitar player or whatever, right? Gotta be open to to everything. And then when you are open to everything, you learn more about everything, and then you can deal with those people better. You're going to make better network connections. You're going to get better gigs for yourself by not being closed off. So I'm very expand, share the wealth, share the knowledge. Nothing really, in the arts community, I don't think anything really comes from hoarding too much for yourself,
No.
Even in stocks and business, it's there's so much money out there. If you see a good chart with whatever, tell your friends, maybe you'll both make money off of it, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That sort of protectionism just doesn't work.
And I think it shines in everything you do, because even online, you're trying to educate people every day, whether it be politically or if it's in stocks or if it's with music. And I see that all the time. And it just shows that your intelligence is more than just one faceted. You know what I mean? You're a multifaceted person, which I think is kind of why you're not cutthroat. Is you're very humble to the core. And it shines in the way you present yourself. And as a promoter, like you were saying, when you're managing artists, 48 acts, our last festival in 2023, we did 22 acts, and there were 15-minute changeovers, and we were 3 minutes behind by the end of the night.
Yeah.
So our team is great with people and fast at what we do, and I think that's the thing, is if it was just me putting I'm the one who does all the bookings, I set up everything, but when it comes to the night, it is not me. It is my friends, my team, and that's where I think people don't realize festivals, how hard they are to put on. Even just an event with 4 artists. Meg, for example, is booking a bachelorette party right now. So there's 5 girls and they're all trying to do something. She's realizing how hard it is to manage 5 girls. And I'm okay, now try 22 bands with 5 members in each band. So then I'm dealing with over 100 people and trying to keep them all happy. It becomes it can also almost be draining when you're having to deal with people who don't take it as professional.
Yeah.
Or on a level that you do. Like you said, when you're booking a show, you want everyone to be at their A game.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I've always looked at my performances as set the bar.
Yeah.
Which is like, if I'm opening, I good luck.
Yeah,
after, right?
I know, right? I feel the same way. Good luck.
So it's that's how every artist, I think, should approach their sets, their art. And you were even mentioning production, that like your mixes aren't. I think we're all too hard on ourselves about mixing.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to compete with these electronic artists and metal artists who have like these absolute professional producers with hundreds of $1,000s of gear and plugins and whatever you want to make it sound industry standard.
Yeah.
Music's not meant to sound the same. And this is one thing I can't stand about the metal industry right now, is everything is so the same. Like, you can hear one band, then it on cycle, it goes to the next one, you think it's the same band, but it's identical production, identical, like, everything.
The last few years of hip-hop kind of sounds the same way. That era of drum and bass, when drum and bass got super popular, but then dubstep kicked in, it was like pendulum blew up. But because they got signed to Warner and all that, and they were also good at what they did as well too, their sound was just so incredibly crisp compared to like the indie labels that it was almost like a joke, like throw in the towel, like I can't make anything that sounds like that. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just sounds so amazing, right? Meh.
It is hard.
But you saying that, like, how it shouldn't have that, I don't know, uniformity, that monotonous, it almost becomes monotonous when it's so perfect, right? And I think that art, what was recently? The Junos were recently. And I really don't like awards. I think because of what and I'm only bringing this up because of what you're saying. I don't think, because it shouldn't sound all the same. And art, whether it be like a painting, abstract art, a sculpture, DJs, bands, there's so much variety, there's so much nuance, there's so much just difference happening, that like the whole part of the creative process is that it's not a competition. Nothing other than like, I want to do the best for my, touch the mic. I think other than wanting to do the best for yourself, nothing about it is a competition. So then all of a sudden, the corporate side kicks in as it becomes more popular and there's more money to be made. You have to have popularity to get that money, to get that market share. And by doing that means different things through different eras. In this era, it means being viral. So now you have to do whatever is necessary to be viral versus just be good and have an awesome manager. You know, so yeah.
It's definitely a weird time. And especially like not doing hip hop for 10 years and coming back to it and seeing like what people are doing to get their stuff known. And it used to be like, write a good song, promote it, perform, people would listen to it. Now you see, and like one music video, now you see like 10 different reels for a verse for a single song.
I know, right?
And it's like, it's trying to keep up with that as a full-time job. You're not able to write music. So it's, I am still trying to understand how modern day artists are able to manage with children, with jobs and stuff, and still get that out. It's elusive to me.
Yeah, so for me, I did not embrace social media properly when it first started happening. It's not that I thought that it was gonna go away, like, oh, what is this computer thing? You know, I wasn't all boomer about it, but I didn't really think it was gonna have the overreaching impact onto every part of our, like, it's like every second of our lives, not maybe ours, but like most people's lives is, you know, again, I'm not dancing at the club because I don't want to look stupid. Like all these micro decisions that are being made because of what could happen for social media is terrible. So for me, you know, I didn't expect that was how it was going to go. I didn't expect Facebook and whatever was just going to blow up. So I kind of didn't do that in the beginning and focused on just locking down residencies. The younger MCs don't even understand that that could be an option. Yeah. Like, why don't you, as a rising person, start a night somewhere and maybe you have a DJ friend that plays the music, and just like have your buddies come out and like just perform, not perform every week, but just like almost, it could even be more like open mic where you're just coming out and testing out your couple new songs. Do I like doing this? Does it sound okay? Are people gonna bob their head to it live before I actually release it? Like there's so much opportunity there. Nobody does that. Everybody just wants to throw a show. Battles are cool, I get it. I used to, when I did electronic music and all the shows back in the day, I also did hip hop shows and was in a hip hop group as well too.
Oh, sweet.
From the scratching. Yeah, we opened up tons of festivals. We played with the Rascals and Swollen members like all the time at festivals. Unfortunately, one of our members got into substances and that ruined it, which is another thing my dad taught me at a young age too, is he said you can't have anybody in the band that has like
any issues.
Back then it was more just drinking, right? Rave culture was more drugs, but and you know, you got a bass player that's an alcoholic and your rhythm section is shot. Plus you're all just not getting along.
Yeah.
So it ended up that it just all blew up, which was unfortunate because like I said, the Rascals were already big. Us and Swollen members were coming up at the same time. And whenever we played shows, like our response to our music was equal to theirs. Like it was, we were going places. And we also did hip hop different because I was an electronic music DJ. So I would get our music cut to acetate, to vinyl. So our instrumentals were on dub plate, and when we played live, I knew from playing shows and hosting my own hip-hop shows that the crowds don't like it when you take a lot of time in between songs. Mm-hmm. So I DJ'd our hip-hop set like it was an EDM show, and I barely gave the MCs time to breathe, or I do a little something in between to let them catch their breath. So our sets were just like bang, 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 and it was always going, and the energy was high. And again, that's something I don't, even to this day, see a lot of hip hop people do. They're chatting, they're like telling stories in between songs to fill their set. I don't know what the point is, you know, like I never saw it work. I know people do it, and maybe they think it's part of hip hop culture, but like if you don't do it, trust me, people will go off harder at your shows.
The lifestyle to be a successful artist has changed. It's not just being good, it's being business oriented, confident in yourself, humble when dealing with people, and understanding when to say yes and when to say no, because you're going to get tossed a ton of shows, but to choose the ones that are going to be like good for your image.
Now, on the hip hop side of things, I've seen, again, I won't mention names, but like groups that had the image of being well off. When in fact, I knew from personal, like firsthand experience from playing with them, they took their record advance, they spent it poorly, they misjudged their sales, now they owe the record company money, and they're all living in an apartment together instead of like touring and blah, 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 right? So when that money starts coming in, what you first start doing with it is huge. Most music is very temperamental. It's very like hit and miss in the moment. Maybe you are a one-hit wonder. Maybe you are just going to be a regional artist, whatever that may be. Maybe your best isn't good enough. Back to that whole thing, right? So when that money hit your hand, did you do something with it, or did you blow it and now you're actually in a worse off position? And that's when you see artists, you know, was it the Denise Richardson from En Vogue lives in her car? Yeah. Like, and she tried to paint it as, well, it's a self-journey and I don't really need to. No, you wouldn't if you could. We would all like to live in a, you know, somewhat stable environment. You know what I mean? So you can't, gotta be, Anyway, it doesn't matter if it's a major label artist or Tyler and Salmon Arm crushing it. You know, the major label artist can drop the ball and the independent guy can crush it by making good decisions, right?
When I grew up and I realized that to be successful doesn't mean to be famous was probably the biggest click in my brain. So you don't need to have millions of dollars to be successful and live. Because you can be successful living off a minimum wage job, and people have some people have a good life. As long as you're making the number you want, like set yourself that number you want. of what covers your bills. Start with that. You know, go and book 4 shows a month in different areas and make sure that you're covering that amount, whether it's through guarantees or merch sales. Then you've supplemented your income doing what you love.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I think we all initially start and go wrong.
And I think that, like, one's mental outlook is super important. Like, you could be, I think, you know, just like scooch off from music here, because
100%.
like that whole, I think that is what determines that ability to grow something. That determines a person's ability to just be okay with their best not being good enough and still get up every morning to get good, to either make that thing that's not as good better, or to focus on the parts of you that are better. So it doesn't matter if it's working on yourself with music, or if it's working on yourself emotionally, or working on yourself within the community. Like, that's another thing too, is like I try and help out. I try to mentor or do a lot of like lessons and things for like youth groups and stuff like that over the years. I've done a lot. I just think that it's so important that, like, right back to that first thing about initial rave culture versus corporate now, like, it's all just about bringing people in this inclusive, like, positive way.
Music is one level, but children are a whole other thing, man. Becoming a parent has been like mind-blowing. I also think it's helped a lot.
Absolutely.
With like the way I look at how I write and how I have to like present myself. And now being a promoter, like, your dad worked in the industry, so you got to watch the industry side of it. And like you said, it caused split, and like he had mentioned that, you know,
sorry, that shouldn't have went
no
off.
worries. Mentioned that, like, he said that you can't do both family and music. And my biggest goal in life right now for the last 4 years is showing my kids that you can do whatever you want. It just doesn't come free. Like, they watch me work 7 days a week doing what I love because I want to get it done. The sacrifice is, luckily I can work from home, so I can be here and do everything. But the main goal for me is, like, if you guys want to be an astronaut, it's going to take a lot of work. You want to be a millionaire, it's going to take a lot of work. I just want to make music and build community within the Okanagan. And it's kind of like, I always realized, I always wanted to be a touring artist. The older I get, after
I hated touring. It made me very run down. I got really sick. I almost actually got a pancreatic cancer. But I didn't drink and party and do crazy things. So the doctor was like, I think it's just like your life, like your lack of sleep, your traveling, the crappy food you got to eat at the airport, the tour, the bus station. There's a lot of bus stations back then because electronic music wasn't really like flying also. But yeah, it's hard.
It is.
Life. It's not. I don't care what anybody says, like touring,
unless
I guess you're a rare person that likes that. I got very played out very quickly.
Yeah, I did a week-long tour with hip-hop, and I was sick for 3 weeks after. And it was probably because of a lot of the drinking, but like just the eating gas station food, no sleep. It's very hard on you, and then you're also away from your family, which is the other hard part. Like, you're like, oh, I just drove 16 hours away from my family to play for like 10 people at a festival that no one knows, right? So like,
the bad gigs are always
those are the no's and the yeses.
Yeah, the no's and the
I mean,
yeses.
like, they'll pay you $2,000 to go there, but morally, was it worth it?
Another interesting thing that I noticed in my life that very few other people that I've talked to have experienced with DJing or music is, because I did have 3 kids, so I have now 12, 10, and 8. Most of us start slowly playing out all those bad decisions that our parents did. But part of like being a strong person is also like working on yourself. And it was those early years of watching my own bad decisions made me go, oh, you know, I can get help for this. I can actually become a better person. Don't be afraid to go to therapy because you actually want to make something better for yourself. any artists that are listening to this, you know, there's probably an 8 out of 10 chance that you're kind of a little quirky. And like,
I'm one of them.
Yeah, go with it. Like, that's what makes us be able to do it.
Yeah.
And often it's that like endless drive of that quirkiness that makes you be able to get up every day and try again, even though you might not be good at it, right? So, but along with that is, don't let that quirkiness wreck other decisions. Don't let it lead to alcohol and drugs that then ruin your opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And those are only things that, you know, some of us get to learn along the way. Some of us learn it and then catch it, and some of us have to fail and then get back up and just try again, right? And even if you failed, I've seen many artists that I know end up living on the street in East Van. And I've seen other artists totally get it together and crush their lives, whether it be in music or now they own like a crazy, they've gone to school and now they have a construction company and they make millions of dollars a year. Like, the point is your quirkiness is your drive, but it can also be your downfall. So like, just like you have to learn how to play the guitar or learn how to scratch daily, just learn how to work on yourself a little bit daily. And that's why I mentioned again the Buddha and the Sikhism thing and all that, because a lot of that is about introspection, right? And it's not just about reading a book and then going to a temple or a church and doing a thing. You actually have to live it every day. And I think once you start living these things every day, we can be better people every day.
Yeah, therapy was definitely the biggest help for me. For years, I had a very bad temper.
Yeah,
and it was just because I had a quick fuse, and it was just being taught reactions like that. Like,
totally.
You watch your parents, and the reaction comes up. So for me to willingly look at myself outside of the bubble and to see myself and be like, "Hey, go get help," it really helped me, and it's helped me mainly with dealing with people. I love to debate and have conversations that people don't like to have.
Yeah.
And I always got told I was
too pushy or something.
Not too pushy, but like I get worked up, and it's it's passion. It's like I'm passionate about something, but it seems like it's anger or.
Gotcha.
But it's just trying to like reel that in, and understanding really helped me be a better person, a better friend, a better lover, and a better like just for the community in general. Because now I can approach a situation with 22 bands and 100 artists and not get flustered. I can take the 2 seconds to sit back, take the deep breaths, work with my tools that I was given to fix the situation if anything bad comes up. So I'm really good on my feet now when detrimental things happen. Yeah. I'm very good at being able to just work through it.
And I feel it's super positive to talk about these kind of things.
No, it's true. And I think that I am a very, very big advocate of male mental health awareness, and have been since the beginning of Enigma. It's something that I've always been open about, and my lyrics have always been about. And it's kind of, as an artist, like you said, from people who are brought up from homes where they're maybe not heard, when you write a song and somebody gravitates toward that, they naturally become family. Yeah. And as some people, like a lot of artists don't have families, that fan base becomes your family. And music is such a magical thing. It's kind of, there's no words that can really describe, I always talk about this in the interviews, there's no words that can really describe that emotional, spiritual element of music. There isn't. There's no English word, at least and I don't know other languages, but there's probably a word in a different language that would translate well.
Because music it's something about, like when I'm playing a set and like everything feels good, whether it's live or especially at home. When it's live, I just choke it back. Mm-hmm. But when I'm at home and I'm just like locked into the zone doing like practicing for something, like I can like have tears in my eyes because everything is so sonically like beautiful. Mm-hmm. And when you're actually in the flow, and when people know what the flow is, you know what I'm talking about, and you're in a different, you're not grounded in reality in that moment. And that's that thing that we also want to bring to the crowd when we're playing too, right? So if we can't feel it ourselves, how can we possibly bring that out to everybody else, right? You got to be willing to feel those emotions and so that you can then bring it out and everyone feels it. And that just goes back to the community thing that we're obviously both about.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate your input and getting to dive into the history, because there's somebody that we've always been friends on Facebook for years and never actually got to meet in person and chit chat. So, an incredible mind. So I want to thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. We'll catch you guys next time.